That to me is a Negro face. That to me is a Negro face. That to me is a Negro face.
You hear that, Jason?
Doesn't say anything about it being mongoloid.
All right, peace to everybody in the house. So, boom, this is a lecture. This is directed directly at Jason Toltec. This is at Jason Toltec. And today we're going to be talking about how Jason Toltec came at me earlier this year. I had made a post about the Olmecs. And I think I was in North Georgia somewhere. Actually, no, I was near Atlanta. I was a little bit outside of Atlanta. And I was at a parking lot of a taqueria. And they had a giant Olmec head in the taqueria. And I posted it. And Jason actually, commented on my post. I was like, yeah, Olmecs aren't black. Olmecs aren't black. So to all the students today, this is a lecture on disproving Jason Toltec's white supremacist theory that the Olmecs heads weren't black. All right, so we're gonna go through a whole bunch of different information, excerpts, mostly pictures and things like that. So we're gonna flip it around. All right, so here we go. So we're gonna start it up. All right, and to Toltec, I remember at some point he was like, "Oh, you never been to Mexico. You don't know what you're talking about." I've been to I haven't been to all those sites, but I've been to Chichen Itza at least like 5 times, 7 times, maybe 5 times. I don't know. I went a bunch as a kid. I actually got, if you look in the background, I got a Mayan calendar right there that I think that was like 2018 last time I was out there. So yeah, I'm going to flip it around. So we're going to start off with how this whole thing started. All right. So let's see. Yeah, so it started with this. Boom, right here. So it started with this. So this is March 9th, all right? So March 9th. I was like, wow, escape from New York. I was getting away from the coronavirus. Love how random taquerias embrace Black American history more than any other group. And they forgot to add the cornrows though, right? So I made that post, right? Oh, shout out to Vanessa. Shout out to everybody that's watching. All right, so yeah, I made this post about, this was March 9th. And I was like, yeah, they forgot to add the cornrows, right? So then, then Toltec comes at me and he's like, you obviously never been to Mexico. Africans aren't the only people to have wide noses and full lips. All right. So then he posts this and he's like, he's trying to purport this kind of like white supremacist notion that Black people never came to the Americas on their own, that they were only brought here in slave ships. So that's what this whole lecture is about today. We're gonna be debunking the white supremacist myth that that basically says that Black people never figured out how to make ships, and we just recently were brought here as slaves, right? Even though slave comes from the word Slav, right? So we're gonna flip back around. All right. So shout out every connection. So I'm gonna wait for. Okay, there we go. All right. So we're gonna start this lecture up. All right. So to start, this is at Jason Toltec. All right. Now, all right. So you can see, he says, you obviously never been to Mexico. Right? I have, right? Got proof. I just showed a calendar I just recently bought 2 years ago. Now, he was showing this picture. See, this picture just popped up on the internet about 2 years ago. People like Toltec, after seeing decades and decades of Black people, comparing themselves to this clearly Black sculpture, the Olmec heads, he's trying to say like, oh no, it's not a Black person. This is an Indian person, right? That just is overweight or, has a very puffy face and has Black features, has a bigger nose, bigger lips or whatever. And so today we're going to be disproving that. All right. And we're going to go to the sources. So like, we're going to start with this right here. This is clearly an Olmec head. Right, that's an Olmec head, and we're gonna go to let's see. Right, so these Olmec heads were between 6 and 50 tons. Right, so modern culture in Mexico still doesn't have the technology to do these things. Like I'm talking about the indigenous people. If you're talking about the Indians that are actually in Mexico today, these technologies were clearly brought from from Black people. These aren't. These are clearly Black people. So this whole lecture is about him trying to whitewash history, right? And so we're going to go way, way back. All right. So to start, we're going to have to let's see, we're going to go up to here. All right, we're just going to look at a little timeline right here. All right, this is just the Olmec timeline. So we can see the Olmecs were about, about this time for some 1500 BC, right, all the way up to about 500 BC, right? You see that? All right, so now we're going to line that up, right, with some other cultures, right? Got that right here. You can see this right here. All right, we see the Olmecs, and the Maya came right after, right? We see all these other civilizations lined up, right? Because usually when we're in school, we never, they always just show us the Caucasian, the Greeks and all that stuff. They never show everything kind of lined up. But so what we're going to look at is a bunch of different things today. So, so now starting, we're going to look at over here. I'm going to flip over to, let's see. Let me go to here, right here. So I'm going to start out with, although I don't agree with all of Dr. Ranuko Rashidi's, studies. He's a, well-known archaeologist, and he's really literally here at the site. All right.
That piece right there, by the way, is called El Negro. That's what the peasants who dug it up in Mexico call it El Negro, the black. And this is an Olmec artifact as well. In fact, it's so African looking that many of the conservative Olmec writer, when they have conferences, they don't even mention this piece. This is about 1200 BC, and it's about 1200, well, it's old, and it's about 12 feet long, and it has the face of an African. I've been told that that's the face of a howler monkey. Okay. So we have a lot of work to do. We have a lot of barriers to break down.
All right, so that's what I wanted to show with that. All right, so basically, we've been told when Ivan Van Sertima, this is to Jason Toltec. This whole lecture is dedicated just to you, Jason Toltec. So when Ivan Van Sertima first presented his findings to like the National Archaeologists Conference of the World or whatever it was called at the time in like the 70s, they laughed at him because it was all, Caucasian people in the room. They laughed at him and, they're like, nah, those are baby faces. Those are jaguar faces. Dr. Rashidi was just saying, some people were even saying those are monkey faces. They could be anything but black people, right? And that's what Toltec was trying to say. Toltec was like, nah, those aren't black people. Those are just, Mexican people that are very overweight with big noses and big lips. Right, a very rare phenotype of Mexican people. All right, so we're gonna flip back around. All right, we're gonna flip back. All right, so we're back in this. I'm gonna play a little bit more.
To get to your question, but let me make. I want to make.
Actually, no. Let me go over to here. So let's go a little bit farther back. All right, we're about to go back. We're about to go to Morocco. Right. So shout out to all the Moors in the house. So in this lecture, when I'm talking about black people, you can, switch that interchangeably with Moors, black people, pure Homo sapiens, whatever you want to call us, right? So at least 300,000 years ago, right, we have, bones that prove that black people have been on the earth for at least 300,000 years, right? So this is the proof, right? We've been here at least 300,000 years. Now, that's, we know we've been here longer than that, but, due to colonialism and white supremacy, they've been trying to, lower the length of the black woman and black man's, reign on earth, because obviously that threatens white supremacy, right? So, we have proof that, we've been here, that at least black people have been here at least 300,000 years. Before that, the oldest date was like 100,000 years, over closer to on the east side of Africa. And, and the thing is now, now this has totally changed that. So now we know that we have at least 300,000 years. Now, if you want to go beyond 300,000 years, I would suggest anybody go check out Microcremo. All right, I'm going to look up I'm going to type Microcremo. There we go. Microcremo Forbidden Archaeology. All right. So if you want to know anything beyond that, you can look up this lecture is not going to talk about beyond 300,000 years. I'm just going to be talking about the Olmecs, but just to establish everything that I'm going to be proving, we're just staying within, 300,000 years for now. everything that's verified as far as the entire scientific community. So we know that that black people have been here for longer than 3,000 years. We have a lot of proof of that. You know, there's artifacts all over the Americas, artifacts all over the world, right? But, you know, there's a lot of, you know, racism within the archaeology world, and people, you know, literally seeking to destroy and, you know, subvert and hide black history. So this is at Jason Toltec. All right, we're going to flip back. All right, so these heads were about between 6 and 50 tons, right? So I'm going to type Olmec heads, all right? Olmec head, all right? Now, before, when you would type Olmec heads, you know, up until about 2 years ago, you would only see, you know, comparisons with black people, right? But in the past 2 years, people started posting this thing that Jason's been posting recently, this picture, right? And they're like, oh, look, like, you know, these are the Olmecs, you know? But the thing is that this guy is clearly not an Olmec. This is, you know, if you look at this face, and then you look at this face, this is not the same face. Just because he's got big lips and a big nose and he's a little bit portly doesn't mean that he is black. Like, obviously, if this dude was walking behind you in an alley, a dark alley, you'd be like, and he had a brim on his hat, right? You can see his helmet looks like a fitted. If he had a brim on his hat, or maybe his hat's backwards, right? If his hat was backwards, you know, you would clearly think he was black. Right, so it's clearly black. And notice, you know, they try to show this picture too. These are the only two pictures they have when they try to line up phenotypes. So this is what Jason was trying to say. He's like, no, they weren't black. They were just Indians that had bigger noses and bigger. But so today we're going to disprove this because this is totally fake. Now, the first thing we're going to use to disprove this is we're going to talk about, you know, phenotypes and head types and different types of things like that. We're going to do a very extensive analysis, right? So let me go over to here. I'm going to go over to, all right, let's see, before we get to that, I'm going to go to, let's see, where's the Lucia woman? Nah. All right, so we're going to do some phenotype analysis. This is future parts of the lecture that you're going to see. So this is Lucia, right? So we started at 300,000 years ago, right? So we know that black people have come from Morocco at least 300,000 years ago. Let me see. Where were we? We were right. Let me see over here. Let's find where we were. Okay, it was right here. All right, so, right, and I'm going to go to the region, right? So this is where, you know, we date back to at least 300,000 years in Morocco, right? And, okay, there we go. We're back. So very, very close to Marrakesh. I've been in Marrakesh a couple of times. You can actually get a ticket from like southern Spain to Marrakesh, you know, on like EasyJet or Ryanair or whatever for like $30, you know, so, or 30 euros, right? So this skull that they found, dates back to about 300,000 years, is a black person, right? And how do we know this is a black person? How do we know that when we find something 300,000 years ago that it's a black person? Well, we know because there were no other people 300,000 years ago. Indian people have only been on this earth, Indian and Asian people have only been around for about 55,000 years, right? So given that Indian and Asian people have only been around for about 55,000 years, that means any bone that we find that's older than 55,000 years is a black person, right? Okay, so now let's look at the oldest bones or the oldest artifacts that have ever been found in America. Let me see. So I have it in an article. So there we go, right here. All right. So a new study says humans were in the Americas 130,000 years ago, right? This was a mammoth bone that was chopped up, and you know humans were eating it, and they found it by like a campfire with chopped up bones, and people used tools. And, so this is clearly humans chopping up bones and using tools in the Americas 130,000 years ago, right? Okay, so, we know that at 130,000 years ago, there were only black people on Earth. There were no other ethnic groups or other races or whatever of people. The black people didn't mix. We didn't mix our DNA with the Homo neanderthalis traits until about 55,000 years ago. So it's about 55,000 years ago when you see the first mixes, the first Dravidians, the first times that the Neanderthal traits were introduced into the human genome, right? So this is 130, and this is in California. So this is what they're not teaching in school. This information is being hidden. This isn't even a debatable thing. This is like very, very real, like 130,000 years ago. All right. And this is in California. So they found it in California. So I'll read it. All right. So in the winter of 1992, a construction crew in San Diego, California, started cutting into the rocks that flanked the State 54 highway in a bid to widen the road. Those rocks hailed from the Pliocene period and were rich in Ice Age fossils, so scientists from the San Diego Museum of Natural History accompanied the crew to recover whatever they unearthed. Among bits of horse, camel, direwolf, and ground sloth, they found the remains of a single mastodon, an extinct mammoth-like animal. And we noticed that there was something different about it, says Thomas Demir, who was part of the team. All right. Based on several lines of evidence, the way the bones were broken, the way they lay, and the presence of large stones that show curious patterns of wear and are out of place in the surrounding sediment, the team thinks that the early humans used the rocks to hammer their way into the mastodon's bones. That wouldn't have had been contentious in itself, but the team also claims that the bones from the Mastodon are 130,000 years old. That would push back the earliest archaeological evidence for humans in North America to a whopping 115,000 years. To put that in perspective, for decades, the first American settlers were thought to be the Clovis people who arrived 13,000 years ago, right? But by discovering older sites with strong evidence of human activity, archaeologists confirmed that the continent had a pre-Clovis presence that dates back beyond 14,600 years, or perhaps even further. Genetic studies have also suggested that modern humans entered America from Asia even earlier, around 23,000 years ago, right? So that's all like people are talking about Bering Strait and stuff, all that, like all of that. All right. So the main thing about this lecture is that I'm going to be proving that how easy it is. Like if you take a bottle and you seal the bottle and you're in any continent, you can throw that bottle in the water and that bottle could go anywhere in the world. A bottle of that bottle could land in it could go anywhere around the globe. You don't need land bridges and you don't need all these things that they try to purport. Right, so let's flip back to this. All right, so let's go back to here. So yeah, we have humans in California, in San Diego, California, 130,000 years ago, right? All right, now we're going to go a little bit closer, right? We're going to zoom forward to about 11,000 years ago. We're going to be talking about the Lucia woman. All right, so let's flip to here. So this is the Lucia woman, right? This is the actual Lucia woman. Now, this is a modern thing. Notice how this is only 1 year ago. And this is what I was saying before. In the past year, a lot of Latino people have been trying to claim the Lucia woman, even though the scientists have said that the Lucia woman is clearly black. In the past year past 2 years, there's been a large group of, of Caucasian people, Latino people, all trying to, disprove that and say that, that the Lucia woman looked like this, right? But if this is a black woman right here. This is clearly a black woman, right? And we're going to click on this, right? So this is proof that the first Americans were black. So this is the oldest known American artifact that we have. All right. And I'm going to play a little bit of this.
South American archaeologists are finding unusual human remains. The skulls aren't European, but they aren't American Indian either. They belong to none of the prehistoric races known to have set foot in the New World. These skulls are as old as the Ice Age. So who were these first people to discover the Americas? And what became of them? Did they all disappear? Or did some of them survive?
All right, so I'm just trying to play that little part, but I'm going to get to the part where they actually show them putting the person together. All right. So they scanned it, they did everything. Right.
Cast was then given to Richard Neve of the University of Manchester in England, one of the world's leading forensic artists, to recreate.
So this is a forensic artist. For those that don't know, forensic artists are the ones, like if somebody's killed in a crime scene, they can, you know, take bones and figure out how the person looked or whatever. Right? Those are clearly black lips. Those are not Indian lips. Those are not Latino lips. I know a lot of black women that look just like this. So this is the Lucia woman. This is the oldest known American that we can prove, right? And so Jason and other people are trying to say that this is not a black woman, but clearly this is a black woman, right? It's clearly a black woman. And it's also important to note her head, right? I'm going to show the back of her head. I think I have it on another film loaded up somewhere. Let's see. Let me find the back of the Lucia woman's head. I have it somewhere loaded up. I got a bunch of things loaded up. So there's a whole bunch of videos I'm about to drop. But let me continue to play this while I'm looking.
That to me is a Negro face that has all the features that you associate.
Okay, I'm going to rewind that.
All the features, a Negro face. That to me is a Negro face. That to me is a Negro face. That to me is a Negro face.
You hear that, Jason?
That to me is a Negro face.
This is at you, Jason.
That to me is a Negro face that has all the features that you associate with a Negroid face. The proportions of the face, it doesn't say anything about it being Mongoloid.
All right. So, and now there's another thing about this face. Now, when people are just talking about the face, so let's go back to where we were. Let's see. Whoops. So this is what Jason was trying to say. Jason was like, "Oh no, look, it's a Mexican person. You know, I mean, it's an Indian person. These aren't black people, right?" He's trying to say that this guy right here is the same as this person right here, just because he's found somebody. And obviously, this guy has black in his family. But given that he has black in his family, you can't reverse engineer it and then try to say that these people weren't black, right? Because obviously he's got some black in him, right? You know, but you know, we can clearly see here that the Olmecs were clearly black people, right? Forensic scientists are telling us Olmecs are black people. So this is at you, Toltec. So you're clearly ignorant, Toltec. You're clearly ignorant. You don't know. You haven't studied history. I study history every day, right? There's people that study this every day, and I even have a close personal friend that helped you on your first tour when you first won the DMC, and he helped hook your tour up. And he was telling me like, "Hey, be easy on him. Be easy on Toltec. He's kind of he doesn't know any better, But I'm not gonna be easy on you. The homie, Asir said, bury you twice. So I'm gonna put the nail in the coffin, and I'm gonna put another nail in the coffin. I'm gonna put another nail in the coffin, Toltec. And I'm coming at you on the music level too. You still are scared to battle me, but I'm coming for you. But so let's get back to here. All right, so let's go back. So yeah, he's trying to say all this. Now the thing is, let's go over to here. Let's see. Let's flip to these are just some of the Olmec heads. There's over 20 Olmec heads that they found. These things range from 1,000 tons, right? And let's go over to here, right? All right, so let's flip over to here. All right, so this is the Lucia woman, right? So we just established that this is the oldest known American, right? This is the Lucia woman, and the guy I just said, I just showed the video of him showing that you know, she's clearly a black woman. So clearly black people were the first people in America, right? And then you can look up a book called, I'll write this book called They Came. This is by Ivan Van Sertima. Let's see, They Came Before Columbus. So if you find the book, if you type in They Came Before Columbus, I'm going to click it. So, you know, on this book, I'm going to click it so you can see the actual book, right? It's on eBay, right? Now, on this book, you can see that they had the thing where it's like half the Olmec face and then half like a black dude's face, right? So this is, you know, we've been, black Americans have been aware of this for, you know, ever since this came out, right? But Europeans and Latino people, they're just finding out about the fact that black people have, and scientists have confirmed that the Olmecs were black, right? Now, if you flip to here, in the past 2 years, like I was saying, a lot of Latino scholars and Caucasian scholars have been trying to, you know, hide this information, right? And this is another DJ. This is DJ Just in Time trying to say, look, they wasn't African. He's trying to say the Olmecs weren't black, Lucy a woman wasn't black, even though we have scientists clearly saying it, right? And so, and this is some random thing that somebody made, some fake, look, it's like a fake picture that's like, it looks like a alien head. Like this isn't even a real rendering. This is just some really, some site out of Brazil, right? And it's important to note that, Brazil is a very, very racist regime, right? At least 53% of the people in Brazil are black. And, they have no black presence as far as politics and power and all that. So, the people are pretty much enslaved there. So their government is very much against it. So this is Justin Lee, DJ Just in Time, on some racist stuff. This is racist to actually say, the Lucia woman is not black. Like she's clearly a black woman. Scientists clearly say a black woman. This is clearly her skull. And look, they try to make a fake skull. Look, see, this is the real skull. And they're trying to make a fake skull. Look at that. This is not even human proportions. Shout out to Complex. Got Complex in the house. So this isn't even human proportions, right? This isn't even a human skull. This is just fake, right? This is a real human skull, right? And then this is the actual rendering. We see this rendering right here. This is what she would look like. This is the Lucia woman. This is what she would look like today if she had, she had some hair. Now I'm going to show you, because we've been dealing with, for the past, for just the past decades and centuries, we've been dealing with Europeans trying to obscure our history and twist it and erase it and switch places with us, and take our history from us. But, now that we have science and DNA and all that stuff and things are getting a lot more precise, all their lies are finally being revealed, right? So all their lies are falling apart. So this is at you, Jason Toltec. You're spouting white supremacist, kind of Latino brainwash kind of anachronisms. So to say that the Lucy woman is not black, or to say the Olmecs weren't black, that's, anachronism. Same with you, DJ Just in Time. So I'm coming at both of y'all. All right. So let's flip back. All right. Now, all right. So this is some more examples. This is Lucy a woman. This is different angles of her skull. It's very important to note, like you see the back of her skull. See, notice how the back of her skull is not Asiatic, right? Most, if you're checking about most Indians, be they, if you're talking about people in Asia, Asians, or Indians in general, Indians of the Americas, the back of their heads are a lot more flat, right? And you can see that this is a black head. The guy said is a Negroid head, and it's black.
That to me is a Negro face. That to me is a Negro face. That to me is a Negro face.
You hear that, Jason?
Doesn't say anything about it being Mongoloid.
Right, she's black, right? So she's 11,000 years old, 11,000 and a half years old. So this is the oldest known American that we have so far. That's 11,500 years old. Now, if you go to National Geographic, I'm going to go to National Geographic right here. They actually tried to whitewash her. So I'm going to type National Geographic Lucia. So let's see. I only have one hand because I'm holding the phone with this. So I'm going to type National Geographic, and then I'm gonna type Lucia. And you're gonna see they try to whitewash her. They try to make her look like the guy from the Jungle Book. Let me see, where's the actual images? National Geographic Lucia, let's see. National Geographic Lucia cover. Or let me type First Americans. See, they don't even have her name on there. That's funny. I'm going to type National Geographic First Americans. Let's see. First American. All right. So National Geographic First American. What pops up? We got the Lucia woman, right? So this is them trying to whitewash the Lucia woman. This is National Geographic trying to whitewash the Lucia woman. So you can see there they may look at her hair, right? The guy clearly said she's Negro, she's Negroid, she's black, and you know we see here National Geographic trying to like make using literally yellow paint. Like I'm an artist, so obviously you know light shines on people different ways. We all have different colors. We're not just one color. We make up a lot of different colors, but here clearly here they're trying to make her look yellow, right? But people weren't even light-skinned back then, 11,000 years ago. So, you know, for those who don't know, I'm going to flip back around. For those who don't know, you know, we've ascertained that black people have been here at least 300,000 years, right? Humans have been here at least 300,000 years, right? And then we jump to 130K years in California, right? San Diego in America. We've got proof of human existence there, right? Now we jump to 55,000 years. That's when Indians arrived, the first Indians, the first Dravidians, right? But at that point, everybody was still super dark skinned. Even if you go up to about 300 years ago, everybody was still pretty much dark skinned. Like all the light skinned stuff, just a lot of that stuff started happening recently. And if you jump to about maybe, let's say you want to talk about blue eyes and things like that in Caucasians, they've only been here at least 7,000, you know, like around 7,000 years, you know, 6.5, 8,000 years or around that time, you know, because blue eyes only go back to about 7,000 years to a black person living in Spain. And I'll show the pictures of that in the YouTube enhanced version. So in this Facebook version, I'm just going to show the stuff that I already have loaded up. But, you know, in the YouTube version, I'm going to have a million more pictures and examples and stuff like that, just because for time constraints. All right, so I'm going to flip back around. All right, so, all right. Now, so yeah, so this is the whitewashed version, right? And, you know, whitewashing is a practice that's very, very popular. It's always happening, right? And as part of anachronism, right? So this is an anachronism. And National Geographic even apologized. I'm going to type in National Geographic apologizes. So National Geographic apologizes. So let's see, National Geographic apologizes. Apology, racism. I'm going to type racism. Racism, not about the polar bear, but racism. All right, so National Geographic literally came out and said that they've been racist for decades. National Geographic's coverage was racist, right? And they just admitted that in 2018, right? For, you know, and so, yeah, so they've been lying to people this whole time. And they've been, you know, whitewashing stuff, obscuring stuff, you know, making, you know, and that's a whole nother story. All right, so let's go back to here. All right, so let's flip here. So we did all this stuff, right? So we ascertained that this is fake, right? We got DJ Just in Time posting a fake human skull that's totally fake, right? That's not a human skull. There's no human skulls shaped like that, right? This is the actual skull of the actual Lucia woman, right? And this is her rendering, right? This is her 3D rendering, a 3D modeling of her face. Now, what's also important to note as far as whitewashing is that in Brazil, they what happened recently? Somebody, I guess this was last year, maybe it was 2 years ago. Somebody tried to burn the whole museum down where the Lucia woman was resting. The museum in Rio, the National Museum of Rio, you can look it up. They tried to burn the whole museum burned down, but luckily her remains got saved. So I'm going to type Lucia woman Rio. I'm going to type Lucia Museum fire. So I'm going to type Lucia woman Museum fire. right? Like that. And let's see what comes up, right? So most of the skull from the prized 12,000-year-old fossil nicknamed Lucia has been recovered from the wreckage of a fire in Brazil's National Museum. The 200-year-old building in Rio de Janeiro burned down in September, destroying almost all of its artifacts. Almost all of its artifacts. But luckily this one got saved, right? Her actual fossil. And we'll see what it looks like. All right, so her fossil actually, this is in Brazil. See, right, we've got some little Brazilian kids, and they're looking at the first American, a black woman, right? And how come we don't learn about this in school? How come Europeans aren't teaching us about this? Because it's racist. The history classes are racist, and they're clearly implementing white supremacy. They're not teaching kids about this, right? This is the Lucia woman again. Now there's another exhibit of hers where they actually show her body, like right here. It's right here, and they have her lined up like that. So this is also the Lucia woman. So this is the oldest known American, all right? So we've ascertained that, you know, black people were the first people on Earth and the first people in America, right? We know at least to 130,000 years in America, data and San Diego, right? We already found that, right? So they're showing, you know, they have got different parts of her body, and they're showing about what she would have looked like, what her stature would have looked like, right? And then, you know, we got the person to recreate her face, the person that did this, right? This, you know, whoever the 3D rendering designer was, you know, they did a pretty good job. And you can see this is what she would have looked like. All right. So now we're going to move on to the next part. So we're done with this part. All right. Now let's see. So let's move on. Right. So there's a bunch of different Olmec heads, right? This is there's over 20 different Olmec heads. Right, we see this head right here. These are all different heads from all over Mexico, right? So there's over about 20 heads they found so far, and obviously there's probably a million more because there's all types of jungles and hidden pyramids and things like that. But the oldest pyramid in the U.S. is in the Olmec regions. Basically, they've proven that black people are the oldest civilization. This is an example. General Seti, Sarah Sutton Seti has a really good lecture on phenotypes, and you can also go to 1000 Go Head. Let's see, over here somewhere, right here. This cat, 1000 Go Head. He's got a lot of cool ancient American, you know, phenotype comparisons. Like this is a black man from, you know, the Americas, and this is a sculpture from. You know, the actual, like, I'm not sure which exact culture this is, but this is, you know, this is definitely an American, ancient American statue, right? So you can go to this site, you know, 1000 Go Head, you know, he's got a lot of jewels, a lot of gems in there, right? So we see that, right? We see this cat right here, right? They look very, very similar, right? All right, so let's flip to some other stuff. So let me close this window so I can start to close some of these. I'm going to play this clip.
It's shown here for the first time in public in my slides, which shows that the first head that was discovered not only had African features, but Ethiopian braids carved out in the stone.
All right, so this is at you, Justin, and this is at you, Jason Toltec. So this is at you, Jason Toltec, for being racist, trying to say Olmecs weren't black. We've got the pictures. The actual back of the head is cornrows, right? You don't see any Indian tribes in the Americas rocking cornrows, right? Only black people. We're the only tribes here in America that are rocking cornrows, right? Because our hair, you know, when you have straight hair, it falls apart in a cornrow in like a couple of days. You know, like people might go to, you know, Cancun on a trip and they get their hair cornrowed, and then you know, then it all unravels in like a day and 2 days and a half. You know what I'm saying? At least even less than a week, their hair is going to unravel and be sticking all up. So people weren't wearing that. They were wearing 2 braids, maybe 3 braids, 4 braids. They weren't wearing, you know, 8 braids in the back of their head. So we're going to flip back, right? So how can you dispute this, you know, right? Now, I've heard some people try to say, oh, these are feathers. These are feathers sticking in the back of their head, but that makes no sense. Why would they have, you know, feathers that look like cornrows in their head, right?
Never been published. It has never been shown. On top of the heads, the stone heads, they found terracottas, that is clay sculptures of Africa. Now, with respect to those with the helmets, with the exception of the one I mentioned, you could say, okay, fine, perhaps it's a mistake, perhaps it's an accident. That's what they said. First, they said they were baby faces. That's why they had full nose and full mouth. They were faces of babies. Then they said the reason why they have these enormous lips is because they're the snarling mouths of jaguars. These people among whom they were found, the Olmec, they worshipped jaguars, and therefore the snarling mouth of the jaguar was copied. Then they said, one of them said it was made of molten rock, and it fell on its face, and that's why it became flat and full.
So this is Ivan Van Sertima. This is him telling the world what happened when he first presented his findings, and his colleagues, and they were showing that the Olmecs were black, that black people brought civilization, because the Olmecs are the first American civilization that was, bringing technology, like actual civilization, not just wandering in the woods. We brought the pyramids, we brought all the technology. And even if you look inside of the top of, I've been to Chichen Itza multiple times. If you look in the top of it, some of the structures are the same as, Egyptian, technology. So the Egyptians were here, there's been so many, different sequential, travelers coming here from Africa, from the black people from Africa, black people from the Pacific, black people from Europe, black people from all over. Because it's also important to know too that Europe was totally black before, up until about 4,500 years ago is when Caucasian people came into Europe. So before that, Europe was totally black and Indian, right? Totally black. Either you're a dark-skinned black person or a dark-skinned Indian person in Europe. And we proved that the Cheddar Man, I'll have a picture of the Cheddar Man in the YouTube version, but Cheddar Man has been proven to be black. They tried to whitewash him for years too, but then they found that the Cheddar Man was black. All right, so we're going to continue.
The latest explanation is most ingenious. The Science Digest did an article on me in September 1981 in which they presented my case very fairly and objectively, showing the nature of the objections of the establishment, including one eminent historian of Mexico, Michael Coe. And they went to Michael Coe, Boyce Frensberger, the leading science writer for the Times, who did the story on me. He went to Michael Coe and he said, do you believe what Van Sertima is saying, that these are African? And Michael Coe said, they don't look at all African, and even if they do, he says his words, even if they do, the reason why they have full noses, the reason why they have broad noses and full lips is because the tools were blunt and they couldn't make them any sharper. That's the lead.
And it's also important to know that these heads are like 100,000 pounds. 100,000 pounds. Like people can't even, there's no native tribes that are chilling in Central. Low connection. So there's no native tribes chilling in Central America or South America that are making 100,000 pound statues right now to this day. None of them have that technology. All right. So, this is clearly, ancient African technology. So, it's also really important to note that Sertima actually became suicidal at a certain point because the whole archaeology community was, on some white supremacist stuff in the 70s and 80s coming at him. I mean, it's still like that now, but they are coming at him so much that he was actually suicidal. He was actually on the brink of suicide. And if you do some research and you see the people that found the Lucia woman, it was actually originally this guy. He was the researcher, and he actually died on the site of trying to find her, and his wife continued it. And then she eventually found the Lucia woman, right? The first American, and who we've ascertained was a black person. When she found the person, she found the Lucia woman, and then she mysteriously died. So there's a lot of shady stuff going on behind, and then years later, the whole museum burned down where the same thing is. So so to rewind that. This guy was searching. I'll put the YouTube link because I can't think of his name and her name right now. Because I want to keep this lecture short. I'm trying to keep it under like an hour and 20 minutes or something. But so he was trying to find the remains, and he died mysteriously on the site trying to find them. right? Like something fell on him or something. And then his wife continued, she found the bones, and then she died in the shower, right? She died like, maybe they said she slipped in the shower, or she got electrocuted in the shower, or something weird. Something really weird like that. I'll show the Wikipedia of that. And then the skeleton goes to display, and then the whole museum burns down. So it's like, you know, it's very, very shady what's been going on. All right, so let's flip it around.
Leading authority on the Americas, prehistoric America. Let me present the case for the dating. On the wooden ceremonial platform where 4 of these stone heads were found at Venta, which turned out to be the holy capital of the Olmec world, O-L-M-E-C. Olmec, the first major civilization in America.
All right, so I'm going to skip ahead. I'm going to go to another thing I have lined up. All right, I'm going to press play here.
In 1938, a scientific expedition set out from the Smithsonian Institute, the University of California, and the National Geographic, and they found that head again. They not only found that head, but the following year they proceeded to Venta, where someone noted they had seen a similar head, and they dug up 4 heads at La Venta. Between 1939 and 1940, 4 heads were dug up at La Venta, and again it was the same thing. Enormous heads, 6 to 9 feet high, just a head, weighing between 10 to 40 tons in weight, having African-type features, and the same type of helmet, as Jarasboy has pointed out. You can find it in Tanis in the Egyptian Delta, with a flap falling along the side of the head. A kind of crest with a flap and incised markings, etc.
Similar to football helmets today.
And the extraordinary thing is that I discovered last year through a friend of mine. He's Wayne Chandler, he's an photojournalist. He discovered in the files of the Smithsonian a photograph that has been suppressed for nearly 50 years, which is shown here for the first time in public in my slides, which shows that the first head that was discovered not only had African features, but Ethiopian braids, carved out in the stone.
All right, so yeah, we showed that already. So let me start to close some of these. All right, now, so once again, this is one of the earlier ones. This is one of the smaller Olmec heads before they started making them really big and really massive. But once again, we can see this is clearly a black person. We can clearly see this is an afro, right? And, you know, and he's got a widow's peak there, right? This is a clearly a black person, right? All right. Now let's click over to here. So these are some phenotypes, like I was saying before. We can see that this is that exact same thing. And once again, I'm referencing Sarah Sutanseti. You can check out his stuff. This is a good lecture. I'll put a link to this lecture. Are there Olmecs, Kushite Africans, or Mexican Indians? Right. The debate's over. Right. Because this is they're clearly black. Right. We've proven it time and time again. And I'm going to show some other phenotypes because this is like the Bacau phenotype, right? And see, they're trying to say that this guy is this guy, but we clearly see these are 2 different people. This is clearly a black person. This is clearly an Indian person. And most Indian people don't look like this. You know, he clearly has some black features. He could even have a cleft palate. It looks like his, you know, his lip is actually more due to having a cleft palate, right? That was sewn when he was younger, right? But I'm going to skip ahead because there's a lot of good phenotype comparisons on here, right? Where we see, look, these are clearly black people, right? These are clearly black people. So this is at Justin, I'm sorry, this is at both of y'all, Justin, DJ Justin Time, Justin, and this is at DJ Toltec, for y'all being racist and coming at me trying to say, you know, black people only came here on slave ships, right? But, you know, we have proof that black people were the first people here in the Americas, right? All types of proof, right? So these are just some phenotypes. And this is a cool thing that SETI set up, that you can see these are just some general, you know, phenotypes that are part of, you know, Indian Americans, right? And he's making a good point where he's saying something like, how come you don't find Olmec heads that look like this guy? Or how come you don't find Olmec heads that look like this guy, right? Because we find sculptures, there's all types of sculptures that look like, that look like them, like this, right? We find all types of sculptures like that, but how come there's no giant, super huge 9-foot sculpture that's 100,000 pounds that's made out of this? Because those people weren't making these sculptures. They didn't have the technology to do that. They only had the technology to make these sculptures. We had black Americans had the technology to make these 100,000 pound, 9-foot tall structures, right? So this is just to dispute Jason Toltec trying to use this one picture that people just started pushing a couple years ago with this guy. Everybody's trying to be like, all right. So let me find this one part, because there's a really good section in this. So yeah, so we can see, right, there's like different phenotypes and stuff like that. But definitely check this lecture out. All right. So I'm gonna close that window. Right. We're gonna move on. All right. Now I'm gonna close. Let's see. Let's go to not Leaders of the New School. All right, so this is back where we were, right? So this is what him trying to say that, yeah, it's the same people, but it's clearly not, right? These are clearly Africans, and he's just trying to show like a guy, that overweight Indian guy, or Siberian diaspora, people that are that came through the Bering Strait, weren't the same people that were the original inhabitants of here, and the people that were traveling back and forth, right? So yeah, case closed. You can see that here, right? Case closed, right? We got cornrows. We do not find Indians with cornrows. There's no Indian people with cornrows, right? So this is at Jason Toltec, right? And look at this too. This is a good one too. There's all these good, phenotype comparisons and stuff like that, where you see like this sister right here, right? Looks just like this. This is an Olmec. This is an Olmec statue, right? It's clearly a black person. Now, I'm not saying there was no Indian people living amongst the Olmecs. Obviously, they had our heterogeneous society, so there was, Asiatic people and African people there, but the African people there brought the technology, right? So I'm going to play some more examples. Let's see. Let's go to this right here.
Because we have evidence of what they did do, because it leaves marks. The first pyramid to appear in America appears right at Laventa, on the very same ceremonial platform where the stone heads first appear. In the first of the sequence, although they find later Thessalpotis and Sandareza, the first of the sequence of the stone heads is at Laventa, and both the conical pyramid as well as the step pyramid appear. They said, well, but the functions are not the same. It's just a temple in America. It's a tomb in Egypt. That is not true. We have found many, many pyramids could be cited in America, which are both as tomb as well as temple. And in Egypt, many of the great pyramids have temples adjoining. So they have both the tomb and temple combination. And the great ones, the very great ones, the one at Teotihuacan in Mexico and the one at Gizeh in Egypt, they not only have the same base, the identical base, but they also have the third function, the geodetic marker, or the use of the movable capstone for astronomy, the notches, etc. They said at first that the Teotihuacan pyramid was 1 meter off from the Egyptian pyramid. Now they're allowing that meter because of mistakes in the reconstruction and excavation. Which means it's roughly the same base as the Egyptian pyramid. I'm not saying Africans built the pyramid in America, don't misunderstand me. I am saying ideas and influences were carried forward by that migrating group.
So back to that, like I was saying before, the Americas were a heterogeneous society. So just like now, how you might have a architect, let's say you go to Singapore, right? And all that stuff just got built in the past 50 years. All those things in Singapore, since the top architects in the world now are coming from the West, right? All the biggest names in architecture, right? They're coming from the West. Then the people that built Singapore, even if there was people from Singapore that were laborers, or they brought in people from India or different places, the architects that were building those things were clearly, Westerners, right? And mostly Europeans these days, because those are the people that run the society and run the world. But back then, you know, even if you know, there was Indian people helping them build all those things, it was still all black architects and black, just like now how the dominant architects are Caucasian. Back then, the dominant architects were black, were Egyptian, you know, were Moors from different places all around the world. You know, from coming from the Pacific, coming from Africa, coming from Europe, coming from all over. We're global people. All right, so that's also a premise of this lecture too, as well, is because I'm coming at you, Jason Toltec, you know, for trying to say, you know, black people were never, you know, in the Americas before slavery and all that type of stuff. And then I'm coming at you, DJ Justin Time, for trying to say, black people never built boats and, you know, just little canoes, and you can't get a canoe over here. So that I'm coming at y'all because a lot of people believe that. That's why I'm having to clear up all this information, because, you know, people aren't getting it in schools, right? All right, so I'm gonna flip back around. All right, so let me close that off. And there's also a part of this lecture where I couldn't find it, where Satima was saying that they actually had tar covering some of these statues, like actual black tars, like and the faces were actually black. Now this is a really cool image right here. Somebody did this reconstruction of like what would the Olmec faces look like if they did this kind of looks like Martin Luther King, kind of interestingly enough, right? But you know, we clearly, you know, black people can clearly see this as a black person. But you know, I've had people tell me like, oh no, this is a Filipino person, this isn't a black person. But Filipinos look black because black people, they're natives of Philippines, are black. All right. Now, so this is what, you know, we can clearly see his eyes are different than what Toltec was trying to show in this picture. Whoops, not that picture. Another picture I have lined up, but let's see. So yeah, we can clearly see this is a black man, right? You know, right? See that? See that? Okay, right. Now let's go back here. We did the Lucia woman, so I'll close that up. All right. Actually, you know what? I want to show you some of these actual posts of what they're actually saying, like how these people are getting racist. So I said, like, Justin Lee Lamas, DJ Justin Time, dude, your comment saying the Lucy woman wasn't black is actually a racist notion. The skull you posted is fake. Even Wikipedia has the real skull and pictures up. Some racists made this link, and it's on a Brazilian site. That's important to note. The same people that burned down the museum with her in it. The link you posted quite recently. Dude, if you look at the actual display booth in the museum in Rio, you'll see she was definitely black. I noticed a lot of Spanish diaspora like yourself have a hard time swallowing that the new science that proves black people were in the Americas first. So basically you have been misled by racist ideology. The skull and link you posted has a cone head like that of an SNL skit, like the Coneheads. It's clearly not the actual skull of Lucia. It's some BS made up by a racist person that chose to spread the propaganda that black people were not the first Americans, which is a lie. Here's Exhibit A, shows the actual skull, the actual recreation, and your fake skull that you just posted. Thanks for posting this colonial BS, because I will be able to use this info in my lecture that will be directed at Jason Toltec, who also doesn't believe the Olmecs and other ancient Mexican and Central Americans were black. So look at the two skulls, the real one on the left and the fake one that you posted, and do your research before seeking to spread colonial papal propaganda, right? Because the Pope is part of this. Pope was burning books and changing history, right? A long line of popes, right? All right. So the article you posted with the fake skull and fake reconstruction of the skull was created by some dullard fascist scientific blogger that is trying to erase black people from before the ancient world's history by creating a clearly fabricated false story. So your notion is incorrect. The Lucia woman is a black woman. Black people travel the globe on boats. We've ascertained all this in this lecture, right? And boats before any other ethnic group even existed, settling every continent and major island. We didn't need land bridges like animals to cross, right? Because a lot of times when people say like, oh, you guys needed land bridges, you know, you guys came across a land bridge, but Europeans had boats. It's like, no, we had boats before Europeans. We taught Europeans how to build boats, how to read, how to make universities. Everything started with black people. We were the first people, right? All right, so yeah, we didn't need land bridges like animals to cross, Black people are indigenous to everywhere, even Europe and Asia. I'm also curious how you found the link of the fake Lucy woman out of the dozens of real links that show she was black. Because there's only one blog with the fake skull you posted, and every other link shows the real skull. So he had to really, really search to find this. He had to really, really search to try to find something that proved his point, right? Like, look at this, and look at this face, look at this recreation. It's not even done by, this is just some fake thing somebody made with mud or whatever. When a real forensic, we saw the forensic person that actually made this skull, right? All right, now, so wondering what compelled you to try to dispute my statement that black people were the first Americans by pulling up the only article that disputes the world consensus that she was a black woman, right? And then here's like more proof the Lucy woman was black. This thing I already showed y'all. This is in the Rio Museum, right? Just to reiterate. So, I'm going over these things multiple times, right? Yeah, you're right. Kimian's like, dude, don't want that smoke, right? And look, and this is here, Justin getting racist, right? Black men did not cross the Atlantic on little wooden boats, bro. The Atlantic Sea is badass and would smash a little wooden boat to pieces. And anyone who has worked in the Atlantic would piss their pants should you try to put forth such a ludicrous notion. I'm from Hull, brother, a coastal town in England. We piss salt water here. The Atlantic is in our blood. Black people only left Africa once. He's talking about walking. He's talking about people walking into the, going from, Egypt to, into, the modern day Israel or whatever. He's trying to say that we only walked into, we only left Africa once, right? So that's, it's clearly racism, right? And, the reason I had to halt a lot of my DJ studies, like, this is a DJ Academy, and, I had a lot of, racist turntablists coming at me. So I'm draining the swamp. I'm draining the swamp of all the racist turntablists and DJs. If you think that a forensic artist saying that this is a black person is racist to you, then you guys are just a bunch of racists. You guys are fools, right? Because racism is also not just being ignorant; it's also just being foolish. It's also being a cretin, right? And if you look up the word cretin, you can check that out. Cretin and peon and all these things, right? So you guys are being peons, right? All right. So now, So he's just trying to like spew all this crap, right? And so he's trying to tell me check myself. And he's also telling Jason Toltec that his ethnic history is false and he's actually black African is full on nuts. I never said that. I just said the Olmecs were black, and Jason Toltec was trying to say the Olmecs weren't black. So that's what this whole lecture is about, proving that the Olmecs were black and that Justin and Jason are totally wrong and they're racist Latinos. And we're going to talk about the hierarchy and why are they being racist? Why is it that they're doing that? So, and first of all, we're going to talk about cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance is, in the field of psychology, cognitive dissonance occurs when a person holds contradictory beliefs, ideas, or values, and is typically experienced as psychological stress when they participate in an action that goes against one or more of them, right? According to this theory, when two actions or connection, not psychologically consistent with each other, people do all in their power to change them until they become consistent. The discomfort is triggered by the person's belief clashing with new information perceived, wherein they try to find a way to resolve the contradiction to reduce their discomfort. So that's similar to, they use, I'm vegan on the Dr. Sebi diet since 2011, for those that are curious what I eat. But, it's great that they use the example of meat eating in here, because that's a great example of cognitive dissonance. Where's the meat eating section? There we go, the meat eating section, right? So, in this meat eating section, meat eating can involve discrepancies between the behavior of eating meat and various ideals that the person holds. So they're talking about, like, if you love it, you like say, I love animals, I love animals, I love my dog, but I got to kill animals to feed my dog. So it's like they love animals, but how can you love something that you eat or kill, right? So that's called cognitive dissonance. When you have one brain that says, I love animals, and you have another brain that says, I eat animals, those are clearly against each other, right? You don't have one brain that's working together. You have two separate consciousnesses, almost like a multiple personality disorder or something, but it's not. That's called cognitive dissonance, where you have warring ideals within your mind that don't make sense. Like, how can you love something that you rip apart and drain all the blood and eat? How can you love it, right? Okay, so we're going to flip back. All right, so we did cognitive dissonance. Now we're going to go to some other concepts. All right, let's see. Let's go. Now we're going to talk about the actual the reasoning. Why would Justin do this? Why would Justin come at me and say like, "Oh yeah, these aren't black people," right? When we've clearly established, that they even named these people black people. They like earlier. Dr. Rashidi was saying, they called it El Negro, right? And the natives were like, hey, these are black people, right? And you can go all over Mexico, all over America, and people have giant statues that they've made themselves in a pattern of this. And if you ask a lot of these people if they're black, a lot of people straight up say no, right? Just like if you go to the Dominican Republic and you be like, you black? You're like, no, man, I'm not black, man.
Anything about it that to me is a Negro face. That to me is a Negro face. That to me is a Negro face.
You hear that, Jason?
Doesn't say anything about it being Mongoloid.
All right, so that was the Lucy woman again. Now let's go to here. Let's see. I'm going to start closing some of these windows. I want to wrap up. Now this is anachronism. For those who don't know what anachronism is, anachronism is a chronological inconsistency in some arrangement, especially a juxtaposition of persons, events, objects, or customs from different periods. The most common type of anachronism is an object misplaced in time, but it may be a verbal expression, a technology, a philosophical idea, a musical style, a material, a plant, an animal, a custom, or anything else associated with a particular period that is placed outside its proper temporal domain. Right, so that's one type of anachronism. Another type is, para-anachronism, right, or parachronism, right, and that's anything that appears in a time period in which is not normally found, right. And there's prochronism, right, and it is an impossible anachronism, which occurs when an object or idea that has not yet been invented when the situation takes place and therefore could not have possibly existed at that time. So, it's just when people are flipping around history and lying and making stuff up, they're doing that stuff all the time. So now this is back to the cornrow things, right? So you can see right here, the cornrow style, right? This is the cornrow style. This is a black hairstyle, right? And people that aren't black just started doing that recently. When they go to trips to, the Caribbean or something, they might get themselves some cornrows, right? And like I was saying before, when Caucasian people or Indian people get cornrows, it's not going to look the same. It falls apart. The hair can't keep the cornrows, right? So it's not a practical braiding style, right? So I'm going to flip over. All right. So now we're going to talk about why would DJ Toltec, why would Toltec come at me on this racist stuff? Well, obviously he's been indoctrinated with these, pyramids. We live in a caste system, right? Oh, Keela's in the house, waving at everybody. We live in a caste system, right? And, and at the bottom of their caste system is black people, right? And, in the Indian context, that was called, there was the Brahmins at the top. So in our world, white Caucasian people are the Brahmins, right? And black people are the Shudras, or really we're the untouchables, at the bottom, the Dalits, right? The Dalits are the untouchables at the very, very bottom, right? So fast forward to now, when the colonial European pyramids, we got the Spaniards, the people like Jason Toltec, and at the top, right? And then got the mestizos, people like DJ Justin Time, who's I guess mixed Caucasian and Asian descent, right? Like maybe Filipino descent, right? And then so all the people at the top are hating on the people on the bottom. That's what slavery is about. It's about everybody ganging up on the original people, right? So this is why you got Jason Toltec coming at me thinking he knows history when we've just proven the Olmecs were black and the first Americans were black. All right, so let's close that pyramid, because we're closing up, right? All right, so we're back here at this, so I'm going to show some more of this. Like we had this little debate going on, right? And I just wanted to bring this debate to YouTube and bring it public. So now let's see. So I'm going to flip to the next one. All right, now this is very important. This is the first book, America, right? And I'm sorry, this is the first book on America, or with the title America. And they don't teach this in American history class. Now look at this. Who's that? That's clearly a black person, right? Right? We've clearly established that black people were the first Americans, all right? And that, you know, here they are depicted. So this was a book by a Dutch cartographer named Arnaldus Montanus. Arnaldus Montanus. Definitely check out his stuff. If you do a Google search of Arnaldus Montanus, you can find all this stuff. And this is we're going to flip through this book very, very quickly and look at what's actually some of the actual history. But I'm going to go through very, very quickly just to see what some of the people were looking like in the Americas back in the day. So he was a cartographer, and he actually, traveled around and drew different people. He was a good artist too, right? Let's look what some Americans look like. Look, black people. This is the first book called America that they won't show in any American history class. They don't show, why wouldn't you think an American history class would always start out with the book called America, right? Why is that? It's because the teachers are lying to you, and they're trying to suppress the information that black people were always here. Always here before Indians, before Caucasians, before Asians, before anybody. This is the first book. So let's look at these people a little bit closer. This is the first book called America, right? These are black people in America, right? These do not, look at their hair. Look, he's got a little afro, right? And we had our turbans and some, feathers sticking out, right? Right? These are clearly, that's clearly Moorish garb, right? Very clear. All right, so these are clearly black people. So this is the first book, America. We're just going to flip through it really, really quick, all right? Because this is, what they don't show in American history classes. All right, so then we've got, and look at the build of these people too. You see how they're very, very, these are very African, thighs and calf muscle, and structures. They're very hardy people, right? These are clearly black people, right? And he went all over. He went to Peru. He went everywhere in the Americas, and he was drawing different types of people, right? So this is, let's see, Christopher Columbus. Sorry, and the reason I did this is because of Columbus Day, right? Both sides of my family. My paternal side is Black Cherokee, which is Mississippi River civilization, and then my mom's side is Choctaw, Mississippi, Black Native American. So, I'm an indigenous Native American on both sides. And, there's the Dawes rolls and all different types of things like that have tried to, oppress our people and take our, our heritage and our birthright away from us. But, this land, if you actually test the DNA of all the people in these mounds and underground, you're going to find that these are all black people. But if you look online and you type, why aren't the Native American tribes that are listed on the Dawes rolls actually testing these bones? None of them are testing because they're scared, because they know the second they test those bones, it's going to be like, oh, black people, just like Lucy, a woman, just like, even the Kennewick man. They tried to make the Kennewick man and say he was white, like white people came here a long, long time ago. The Kennewick man, and even Vikings. This is a new study too. They even disproved that Vikings are not a group of people. Vikings were just a profession, like a shipbuilder. Vikings were just a profession. So Vikings weren't actually a group of people. It's just a name for a profession. Vikings were a type of, like an explorer. Oh, he's an explorer. He's a Viking. Vikings weren't actually a group of because they found Viking rings that say Allah on it. They found all types of Muslim Viking stuff, black Viking stuff. Vikings with Egyptian stones, so black people have been traveling all the world. So Justin, you're lying to people, Toltec, you lying to people. Y'all need to read a book. So Justin, you need to read a book, and Toltec, you need to read a book. You need to read a book, right? And that can help y'all. Toltec, it can help you scratching too, because all your styles are borrowed from black people. You're flipping. I see, you're doing back spinning, right? Grandmaster Flash, right? You're doing some juggling. You got Steve D. You're doing, everything that you're creating. Your whole pyramid of your whole style is based off of black people, right? Right? You know what I'm saying? So, you know, y'all, you're not going to come at me with that stuff. All right. So, yeah, so we know it's Indigenous Peoples Day. We know Columbus is a, you know, rapist and killer and murderer and, you know, very sick person. So we're going to keep going through this book. Now look at this. Look, this is the actual first book called America. Now we see some people with long hair here, right? Because we know that, you know, the tribes were heterogeneous, and heterogeneous means, you know, multiple ethnicities, right? So we see black people here, we see people longer hair, but everybody's dark skin, right? Everybody's dark skin, whether they have straighter hair or whether they have, you know, like, right? We don't see any hair going down his back. These are black people. And this is the first, and so this is the 1600s, just to give y'all reference of when this is the 1600s, right? So this is him travel. This is, you know, him drawing the people of the Americas. Look at this, more black people. Look at that. Go figure. More black people. These are the natives of the Americas, right? So who's this? Let's see. Okay, so these are just explorers, right? Right, we had Columbus, right? All right, now let's keep going. All right, so we're just gonna keep, let's see. There we go. So now we have some, we see some Europeans here. So everybody's depicted. Now look at this brother right here. Does this guy look like a Latino? Looks like a black man. Looks like these are not slaves. This is before slavery. This is very, very important to note. This is before slavery. So this is the first book that they're not showing in American history class called America. It's literally called America. Whoops, let me go back on that last page. So I'm just going through all the pictures, right? Look at that, black people. This is before slavery. This is black people. These are not slaves. These are natives, right? Whoops, let's keep going forward. All right, so let's keep going. All right, so look at this, right? So we see some, we see like there's a Caucasian person. There's a bunch of black people, more black people, right? You can see, right? And we notice everybody's got, this is a traditional black outfit to have the kind of like a kilt made out of feathers and a feather crown, right? A feather crown and like a kilt made out of feathers, right? So these are clearly black people, right? All right. So these are more explorers, right? Let's skip the explorers, right? All right, look at this. More black people, right? We've got some conquistadors right here. These are not slaves. These are, look, where's their long hair? I thought all the Indians had long hair and what Caucasian people showed us on TV and all the movies, the cowboy Indian movies we've been watching all these years, right? I thought they had long hair. Look, this is the truth. Look at that. These are black people. Clearly black people. We see volcanic eruptions, right? Look at that. That's clearly black people, right? I'm not saying there weren't any Indians there either. I'm not saying there weren't any Indian types there, but we see here everybody's got afros, right? If you got an afro, you're black. All right, so look at this. We've got to see Mexico City, all these different amazing places, right? And there's all different types of weird, you know, things people were worshiping and stuff back then. But look at that, black people, right? There's some Caucasian people there, right? All right, we're going to keep looking. Look at that. America, look, looks like a black person, right? Look at that. Look at his hair. Look at that. That is a black person, right? Look at that. Those are black people, the first Americans, right? So let's keep looking. All right, I'm going to keep going through. Uh-oh, look at that. Looking pretty black. Looking very, very black to me. And we'll show Montezuma too. I'll bring up I got that loaded up somewhere. So I'm trying to wrap this up in the next like 15 minutes. So we're just going to go through this book kind of quickly. I'm just going to start wrapping all these things up. All right, so I'm just showing you all the pictures. So this is the first, anybody that's never seen this book, this is the first book called America that they don't teach in American history class because they're clearly trying to suppress American history. All right, and this is just to show that there's other tribes here. Everybody wasn't all black here. You know, there's other tribes, right? See, there we go. There's some actual, this is what you're talking about, Toltec. There's some actual, you know, Indian people. There were Indian people here, right? Obviously, there's all different types of tribes, but the black tribes were here, all right? And we were the ones that just built the first pyramids here and the first civilizations here, right? And so we can see this is a heterogeneous society. We've got black and Caucasian and Indian all together, right? All right, we're gonna keep going. So look at this, right? Look at that, right? So different tribes, right? We got somebody with some long hair here. Maybe he's, you know, mixed black Indian. Maybe he's straight Indian, right? Dark skin. But we got black people here. Look at these afros. Look, afros right here. Look at that, afro, afro, afro. These are not slaves. These are native people of America. All right, so keep going back. All right, keep going back, keep going back. All right, I'm going forward, I mean, back in time. All right, so going forward, and go through this quick, trying to get through as many pictures as possible. All right, and this is the first book on America. I'm showing you the how Black America was and still is. All right, look at this. Let's look at some of these pictures, right? So this is some different groups, right? We see there's some groups of other people, right? So it wasn't all black here, but look at this, right? We got black person right there, right? Got a black person right there, right? So, right, very, very black. All right, so now I'm not going to go through this whole book because it's like 600 pages, but I'm about a third of a way, so I might as well just go through the whole thing. Let me go to this one. Look at this. This one is very important. This is in New England, I'm pretty sure, right? Either New England or New York, Wisconsin. Let's see. What does it say down here? I'm not even looking at it. I'm going to keep it moving. But look, we got it clearly black people. This is the Americas. The first book called America. Look, there goes an afro. Sorry, Justin. Sorry, Toltec. You guys are racist. Black people have been here for at least 130,000 years. We got proven these are black people. Look at that. All right, so read it and weep. So I'm putting the nail in your coffin. You know, a seer said, "Bury you guys twice." So I'm burying you guys twice, 3, right? I'm gonna put 1,000 nails in the coffin, right? So we're going back. We're gonna keep going farther back into time, back to the future. All right. So we're gonna go through this book. All right. So let's look at some more people. See if we see any black people here. Yep, I see some black people. Yep, definitely see some black people. Right. Okay. So let's keep going. All right, so we go a little bit farther back. Let's see over here. All right, so in this one, we see we got some other people, right? We see some lighter skinned people. We got some Indian people there, right? You can see like they don't look too black, right? So this artist isn't just drawing everybody as if they look black. They're drawing all the different types, right? So there were tribes of Indians and tribes of black people here, all right? And let's go to this. Oh, right, this is America. This is America. Right? Look at that. They look pretty black to me. Looks like the West Indian Parade, right? That's how sisters look in the West Indian Parade, right? Sisters can have all different hair types, long, afro, whatever, right? All right, so this is the first book called America, and it's filled with black people, but why don't they teach us in school? Because they don't want y'all knowing that. And that's what's great. We were coming into the age of information. This is the information age. And now all the secrets are being exposed, right? Everything's right at our fingertips, right? Everything's at our fingertips. All the information's here. So this is by Arnaldus Montanus. You can look him up, Arnaldus Montanus. He had a Latin name, right? And look, you can see different groups of people. Look, black natives, right? But today, if you try to say you're a black native, people ridicule you. Black people ridicule you. Caucasian people ridicule you. Latino people ridicule you. You know, they all, try to ridicule you. Look, black native right here. Look at his hair. That's clearly black, man. This is clearly black. It's clearly black people. Clearly black people, right? Clearly. No disputing this. And look where we are. Right? We're right there. So let's see where we are now. We're right here at, let's see. We're right here at the Mayan region, right? Now, let's see. I thought I had it loaded up. There we go. So I'm trying to find the actual, let me show you guys this first. I'm going to show you guys this. This is the that you can see the back of the Lucy woman's head. So you can see that the back of her head is not, that she has a very black, this is a black skull. See how the The skull is like this. It's not an Asiatic or an Asian skull. I'm not going to say Asiatic because black people are native to Asia too. This is a very black skull right here. You see the back of the head? We have a very pronounced, more conical head versus a flatter head in the back, like most Indians and Asian people with a flatter head. Right? We've proven that this is the oldest American, a black woman. All right? Yeah, this is what I wanted to show. This, you can see the back of her head. Very important. There's no disputing this. No disputing everything I'm dropping. Right? And we look at these women in comparison. Right? Look at her head. Right? It's not the same. Their faces are not the same. These are not the same people. This is not the people in the Olmec statues, right? These are clearly, you know, people with more Asian features, less African, right? Okay, so I'm gonna close that up. So we're finished. We're wrapping things up. All right. Now over here we got. Whoops. I'm gonna show you guys this. Let's see. This is a very important one. Look at this. 10 facts about Montezuma. Look at this. Black people. Look. Look at this. It's a black person. See? So you guys are wrong, Justin. You guys are lying. Look at this. This is Montezuma. Does that look like a modern Mexican person to you? No, it doesn't. These are clearly black people. And Mexico just added black people on the census, even though Montezuma was black, right? That just shows how intense colonialism was. These were not slaves. These aren't freed slaves or maroons or people that ran away in the mountains that they try to tell you. These are clearly black people, all right? And also Terry Castro. I got a homie named Terry Castro, dope jewelry designer. He's always, you know, he's on the whole colonial thing too. So you can look at this too, Terry. If you're here, you can read and weep. Look, these are black people. Look at all these black people. This is Montezuma and the Spanish. Look at that. And I got Spanish people. I got Justin told black people came here on slave ships. You know, only came here on slave ships. You know what I'm saying? Right? And look at this. We can look at what it was actually like. Look, there's all types of different depictions of this. Look at this. This is a better one. Look at that. Clearly black people. Look at that. Clearly black people. Look at that. This is Mexico, right? This is clearly black, right? Look at this, right? Now, so yeah, let's move on. All right. So I'm going to close that up. All right. So that's Montezuma, you know, it's just, look at this. We got Mayans, we clearly got, you know, black Mayans, you know, there's all different colors of Mayans, right? We clearly got dread style hair, right? Braids or whatever. It could be dreads, could be braids, could be both. I got a mix of both. I actually have a braid in my hair and dreads, right? You can have all different types of styles. So, you know, we're wrapping this up. All right. Now I'm going to read this really quickly. Free white persons, just so y'all know that, you know, all this stuff is actually kind of, you know, the idea of white and all that type of stuff is made up. It's actually, it's not an actual ethnic group. It's actually just a political party that, you know, runs the West. So free white persons are free white persons refer to the Naturalization Act as amended by the Act of July 14th, 1870, has meaning naturally given to it when it's first used in 1 Stat 103 C3, meaning all persons belonging to the European races then commonly counted as white and their descendants, including such descendants in other countries to which they have immigrated. It includes all European Jews, more or less intermixed with peoples of Celtic, Scandinavian, Teutonic, Iberian, Latin, Greek, and Slavic descent. And remember, slavery comes from the word Slavic, slave, Slav, right? It includes, I'm not going to read all these things like that, but it's just showing, this is just showing, you know, you can read this yourself. I have it all in the picture, right? So I'm going to close that. And actually, I'm going to play some of these pyramids too that are right after it. I think I have some pyramids, right? We got that pyramid we just saw before. And then we got, you know, this pyramid here, right? We got the whites on the top, Germans, Irish, right? This is why Justin and them would try to get racist on me and try to, you know, try to gaslight me and try to act like I'm saying something crazy by saying the Olmecs were black, right? Or the first Americans were black. All these things are all facts, right? That rhymed. All right. So now we're going to look. All right. We did this. We ascertained earlier that the oldest humans go back to Africa at least 300,000 years, right? We've ascertained that. All right. At least, because we know it goes farther, but this is what the only thing that they'll admit, They don't want to admit we've been here millions or longer. All right. Now let me close that. All right. Close this. We're wrapping up. All right. And we can see right where the Olmecs line up with, they're the same era as, right, classical Greeks, right, Persia, right. You see all these different, even Kush, all these different empires. It's lined up, right. You can see them all lined up. So we're proving that these people from Africa were traveling all over from the Pacific. Black people from Africa, black people from China, black people from India, black people from the Middle East, black people from Greece were traveling there all around the world, right? And like I was saying before, we've proven that Europeans have only been in Europe for about 4,500 years. So I'm going to close that window. All right. I'm going to close this. Keep it moving, right? So these are a lot of the different Olmec heads. For those that have never seen them before, these are just some examples. There's about 20 of them they found so far. These things are like 100,000 pounds. Now, if you're going to say this isn't a black man, you've got cognitive dissonance. You're literally like you had a mental issue going on. That's cognitive dissonance, right? Oh, Olivier's in the house. Waving at Olivier. All right, look at these. All right, look at that. These are clearly black people. Look at that. Clearly. So some of these heads are bigger than others, right? These are clearly black people, right? And I showed before that there are sculptures of other people, the Indians that were in the region, but a different group of people, right? All of this. Look at that. Non-stop. We got proof for days. Proof for days. All right. So I'm closing this up. Right. And earlier we're wrapping up. Earlier established, this is a digital reconstruction that somebody made of what they might look like. The nose might be a little bit different because, there's this part of the nose doesn't look exactly the same, but clearly these are both black people. Right. All right. So I'm going to close that up. All right. Now, let's see. So I was talking about microcremo. If you want to learn about archaeology, humans, black people living beyond 300,000 years ago, you can look up all his information. I'll cover him in another lecture, right? Michael Cremo. He's a very, very cool scientist, right? And you can also check out, this is one of the first books they came before Columbus to, address this issue, the fact that, black people have been coming here back and forth to the Americas. Right. And this is before a lot of the findings that Sir Tima never even knew about, because he passed away probably before, some of these newer findings. Right. All right. And there's his book. And this is the Lucia woman, the first American who's a black woman that they've, clearly ascertained was black. Right. We have the proof of it. And this is the museum that they try to burn her down. They try to, get rid of all this evidence. This is in Rio. They burned this down when Bolsonaro came into power. So we know that Bolsonaro's a fascist. And he, some of his, during his reign, somebody tried to burn down the museum, right? All right. And then, so once again, for those who don't know who the Lucia woman is, you can check her out on Wikipedia. If you're a black American or you're American and you don't know who the Lucia woman is, it means you've been brainwashed, or not brainwashed. It means you've been, miseducated, right? Because it's like, if you're taking an American history class and they haven't told you who the first American is, that's a colonial teacher. You're teaching colonial American history, not actual American history, because colonial history is whitewashing stuff and Indian washing stuff, right? So this is an American history class. That's what this class is. So everybody that's tuning in, you're getting a free American history class. Now, if you want to talk about Neanderthals, right, this is the Neanderthal. We still don't know what their faces look like because, there are different species of humans. And anytime you have a different species, you can't assume what their faces look like. But we know that all non-Africans living today people that are black don't have Neanderthal DNA, while people that have straight hair do have Neanderthal DNA. It says about 20% of distinctly Neanderthal genes survive today. So that means whether the person is Caucasian or whether the person is Indian or Asian, they're going to have from 1 to 20% Neanderthal DNA in their genome. And all right, so we're gonna read this a little bit really quick. Because it's also important to note, the Neanderthals were pretty much only in the regions of, Asia and Europe and stuff like that. They never came to the Americas. So for anybody, if you're going to try to say something like, oh, because earlier we proved that 130,000 years ago, they found that there was black people in San Diego. But somebody might be like, oh, well, maybe those are Neanderthals, because you can find that on the web too. So they're like, oh, maybe they're Neanderthals that were there. But Neanderthals never came out here. They didn't have boats. They weren't smart enough. Neanderthals were actually more like, abominable snowmen, more like snow gorillas, cannibal snow, because, gorillas are vegetarians, vegans, right? But Neanderthals were actually more like, gorillas that, highly intelligent, snow gorillas. And they might have had night vision too. We don't even know. Like a cat. And they might have had like cat eyes. We don't even know. Because the thing is, a Neanderthal child could, take out Mike Tyson with ease. Mike Tyson could never beat up any Neanderthal. That's how strong the Neanderthals were. Their eyeballs were the size of like small oranges. So I'm going to type in this thing called super predator. Type super predator Neanderthal, not the Hillary Clinton super predator, but super predator Neanderthal. There we go. And so I'm going to click on this really quick. So this is very, very important.
This is the currently accepted view of what Neanderthals look like. A bit hairier than us, and with a larger nose and thicker brow ridges. But apart from that, they're unquestionably human. In fact, it's been said that if you gave a Neanderthal a shave, a haircut, and dressed him up in a nice suit, he could easily attend Harvard, although he'd need rich parents. There's a couple of things wrong with this picture. First, it's not based on...
So he's saying that, this lecture is saying that, is proving that this whole thing of like Neanderthals looking like white people is fake. Neanderthals did not look like Caucasian people, because Neanderthals, their eyeballs were the size of like an orange. And their forehead was like, they had a small forehead. Like, they didn't look like humans, Like, even though Caucasians, Asians, and Indians shared up to 20% of their DNA, they did not look like humans. The hair is the same, but we don't know what their faces really look like. So this guy, he's doing another theory, another reconstruction, because these are all the reconstructions that you're going to see in museums and things like that. And it's important to note that in museums, these are things coming from the 50s and 70s and 40s and 20s, super racist eras. So, they try to make a lot of people look more black or something in the past, like Neanderthals and whatnot. Notice how they make their noses look big or something. But, Neanderthals, they might have had no nose, like a gorilla. Because if you type in the last Neanderthal, I'm going to type last Neanderthal, and we go to the picture. The last known Neanderthal was a woman. I'm going to find her picture in one of the Russian dynasties. See, they're even suppressing her picture. I forget what her name was, but I'm going to look it up. Russia. Oh, here we go. This is it. See, yeah, they don't want to show this picture. See, so this is a real drawing. This is a drawing from a Russian Tsar era. Right, this is the last known captured Neanderthal, right? They say Neanderthals were wiped out about 30,000 years ago, right? And remember, so there was and the Neanderthal genes were added to the human genome about 55,000 years ago. So, if you take 55,000 minus 30, that's about 15, right? I'm sorry, not 15, that's 25. Right, 25, right? So so that's like 25,000 years of overlap, right? So there's 25,000 years where there were the Homo sapiens those are black people, and Homo sapien Neanderthalis hybrids, and that's Asian, Indian, and anybody with straight hair, right? Caucasian people, right? But you see her nose is more like a gorilla nose. They drew her nose as an inverted nose. So anytime you see like a drawing of a Neanderthal and they try to make them have a heavy brow and this and that, their nose, and they have a Caucasian nose or a black nose or whatever, all that's fake. The only picture that was actually drawn of the last known Neanderthal was this picture, right? And this is a drawing from the Tsar era, right? So this is we're gonna click on this, right? So this ape woman who could be, right? So and they tested her DNA too. Like they have her DNA, her grave, her 2 sons. This was a real woman. A very, very, they said her skin was very gray. She did not like to be in clothing. Like when they put clothes on her, she would just rip them off. And they said she was also able to, they found her in the woods in Russia. Not in Siberia, but they found her in Russia. So, they said she was able to handle the extreme cold weather. So her skin was very gray. Right. So I'm going to go back to what I was just playing. And this is showing that Neanderthals did not look like people. We have that drawing, right? And all these other things are fake. That drawing was a real drawing from a Russian Tsar.
Skin, hair.
I mean, like a scribe of a Russian Tsar, artist of a Russian Tsar. It was during the Russian Tsar era.
Color and eyeballs are not preserved in the fossil record.
So he's saying that the fossil record never preserves what an animal looks like. So we can only assume what Neanderthals look like. But, so we don't know what their noses look like, except that one picture that was the drawing.
The reason is that after studying Neanderthals for 10 years, I'm convinced they look nothing like this at all.
So what he's going to do, these are all things that you'd find in museums now. So he's going to use logic and recreate what the Neanderthal would look like. So let's keep playing some of this.
Construct Neanderthal faces from their skulls. Now, this forensic process works fine on humans, but that's because we know the shape and position of our noses, ears, and lips. We know the thickness and texture of our skin, and we know the shape and size of our eyeballs. These soft tissue features are unique to humans. You would never use them to reconstruct the face of a chimpanzee or gorilla. And yet, scientists always use human facial characteristics and dimensions to reconstruct Neanderthal faces. So it's inevitable that you end up with something that looks like a human. It's spurious science.
So he's saying that you can graft a human face onto any skull. You could take a dog skull or a monkey skull or a squirrel face and put a human face on it. So all this stuff is fake.
Television
all this stuff with the Neanderthal with the big brow,
often use actors to portray Neanderthals. This involves hours and hours of meticulous makeup, which the producers assure us is 100% anatomically accurate. But it's not. And one reason is that Neanderthal eyes were in a different position in their skulls compared to humans. They were higher up, about where our foreheads are.
So he's saying that the Neanderthal eyes were in a different position. They had basically no forehead, right? They had huge eyes. So look at that. This is a human face, a human proportion. This is a black human, right? This is the Homo sapien, right? And this is the Neanderthal, right? And Neanderthals were cannibals and 100% meat eaters. The only time they ever ate vegetables was when they ate the stomach of an animal that ate some vegetables, and they got to eat what was inside the stomach. All right, that was the only time. Now, there were they found Neanderthals that were eating vegetables that were in really like fruitful regions, like in Spain and maybe some places in Southern Europe, maybe France too. They did find some Neanderthals that were, not just eating a 100% meat diet, but Neanderthals are more like, gorillas that ate meat, like they could probably beat up gorillas, but they're just more like very intelligent.
And judging by the size of their orbits or eye sockets,
So look how big their eye sockets were. Their eyeballs were huge. If we saw a Neanderthal, we'd be freaked out. We wouldn't be like, oh, that guy looks like, he just needs a shave and put him some new clothes on. It's not like, it's more like Harry and the Hendersons.
Eyes were also considerably larger as well.
So if George Clooney ever had to play a Neanderthal, he'd need to have a serious facelift.
Exactly. See, that's what they would look like. We would be freaked out if we saw them. They wouldn't look human. Neanderthals were not human, right? And even the nose, like he was saying.
And you need larger eyes as well. When you actually look at the hard evidence, you soon see that Neanderthal skulls and human skulls were fundamentally different. This is a Neanderthal skull. It's got a protruding face, large eye sockets, and very prominent brow ridges, compared to a human skull.
Look at that. Very different. That's a human skull, right? That's a black person's skull, right? Because we see that, it's got the signature black conical head. And then we see this, right? Neanderthal.
Quite different.
Very different.
There's another reason why Neanderthals don't look like humans, and that's to do with the environment. Basically, we know from Darwin that it's the environment that largely determines what an animal behaves like and looks like. In the case of Neanderthals and humans, they evolved on completely separate continents. Humans evolved in the temperate, warm, fertile savannas of Africa. Neanderthals evolved in the frozen glacial wastelands of Ice Age Europe. In fact, the two species, when they met again, had been apart for over 500,000 years. It's inconceivable from a Darwinian perspective that Neanderthals and humans would still resemble each other after 500,000 years.
Exactly.
All this suggests to me that Neanderthals did not look like humans.
Right. It's all fake. This is all fake. You go to all these museums, they're just showing you fake stuff. It's all fake. Neanderthals did not look like people, right? So that means, because if you talk about Caucasian people in human history, they only go back 7,000 years. Because, a lot of times they're trying to, Neanderthals were here hundreds of thousands of years. Yeah, but they didn't look like people. They didn't look like Caucasian people. Neanderthals did not look like humans.
This is an interesting question.
These are all fake.
What did they look like?
So he's going to get some forensic people to make,
Once you get rid of all the
use the evidence.
Bias and the inherent flaws in the reconstruction technology, answering this question is not particularly difficult. And that's because, ultimately, Neanderthals were members of the order of primates. They were primates, and as such you would expect them to maintain the appearance of primates. The fact that humans no longer look like their primate ancestors is, I believe, due to completely unique ecological and environmental circumstances, which I describe in my book. These circumstances certainly didn't apply to Neanderthals. So in light of that, you would expect them to maintain the appearance of a tall bipedal primate. Once you acknowledge that Neanderthals were primates, you start to see similarities between them and other primates. For example, when I compared
This is why Neanderthals never were in the U.S. because they couldn't build boats, right? Monkeys don't build boats. A monkey can make a tool. A monkey can, take a stick and knock you in the head, or take a rock and hit something. But monkeys aren't, they're not organized, right?
Of a Neanderthal with a chimpanzee, they seem to fit amazingly well. For my book, Them and Us, I commissioned...
So you see that. I'm gonna go back to that. That's very important. He put it next to a chimpanzee skull. Whoops.
They seem to fit.
So look, that's a Neanderthal skull and a chimpanzee skull overlaid. This is a Neanderthal, this is a chimpanzee. So clearly Neanderthals were like basically highly intelligent chimpanzees that were, eating a 100% meat diet, 99% meat diet.
With a chimpanzee. They seem to fit.
So they probably could have messed the chimpanzee up because, all right.
For my book, Them and Us, I commissioned one of the world's best digital sculptors to create a completely new forensic reconstruction based on my theories. We began by scanning the skull of a French Neanderthal. Then, over several months and hundreds of emails and phone calls between Spain and Australia, a creature gradually emerged.
See, exactly. Neanderthals were not human. They did not look human. They were basically like when we talk about Bigfoot and Sasquatch and all that type of, so-called conspiracy stuff, that's what the Neanderthals were. Neanderthals were the Bigfoots, They were snow gorillas, like an abominable snowman. You want to call it Yeti, call it whatever. this is, you know, a more accurate reconstruction. Because all these other reconstructions are more just kind of colonial anachronisms.
Now, saying
All right. So I'm going to keep playing some more of this.
Neanderthals look like modern primates is an interesting clue, but it only goes so far. That's because modern primates come in all shapes and sizes. And there's a good reason for that. They've simply adapted to very specific regional, ecological, and environmental circumstances. And we would expect the same of Neanderthals. So to create a more nuanced picture of Neanderthal physiology, we need to understand the specifics of their environment. And we know a great deal about that. It was Ice Age Europe, a frozen glacial wasteland, described as the most inhospitable environment ever occupied by hominids. This was the environment that shaped every aspect of their physiology and behaviour. Take the issue of body hair, for example. Were Neanderthals hairless like us, or did they have body hair like all the other primates? Well, if you look at the animals that lived in Ice Age Europe at the same time as Neanderthals, you see that they all had thick, dense coats of body hair.
Exactly.
The woolly rhino, Eurasian cave lion, the cave bear, all had thick fur coats. And that makes sense, isn't it?
Now we're going to go to a concept called, I'm going to type in woodwozer. So for those that don't know, I'm going to type in woodwozer. And I'm going in, this is at you, Justin Time and DJ Toltec. So woodwozer. All right. So for those that don't know what a woodwozer is, let's see. Woodwozer, or I guess woodwoes. All right. We can call that a woodwoe. So woodwoes or wild men, right? I'm going to click on Wikipedia and look at this. Look at that. Woodwoes, wild men, men covered in fur, right? And generally, people would call that Hirtuism. I'm going to type that Hirtuism, or here's Sutism. I was saying it wrong. All right, and I'm going to type let me find it in Wikipedia. Hirtuism wiki. Where's the wiki version? This lecture's turning out long again, but it's cool. This is an important lecture. All right, now, there we go, Hirtuism, right? So look at that, right? There we go. That's the connection between Neanderthals and, you know, Homo sapien neanderthalis, right? This is Hirtuism. You don't see this in African people, right? You only see this in either Europeans, Middle Eastern people, Indian people, right? You don't, right? So this is Hirtuism. All right. And if I type, so Hirtuism is excessive body hair in men and women on parts of the body where hair is normally absent or minimal. It may refer to a male pattern of hair growth that may be a sign. So it's basically just being covered in hair, right? So I'm going to go back. I'm going to type Hirtuism, and I'm going to type, or Hirsutism, actually, I'm saying it wrong, right? And I'm going to look at the images, right, and see what comes up, right? We see people covered in hair, right? They're not showing the people fully covered in hair, right? But this is, you know, showing what it's supposed to look like. So I'll type people covered in hair. So people covered, ED in hair. All right, so this is people covered in hair. All right. Now, if you want to learn more about the creation of how that happened, how humans and Neanderthals mixed together, if you want to learn about that, so you see, you know, Neanderthals would probably have looked more, you know, not like this, because remember, their eyes were higher up in their head. The eyes would be up here, right? But obviously the hair traits, remember, we ascertained that up to 20% of non-African DNA contains up to 20% of Neanderthal DNAs. So now we see all these different examples, right? Right. Now we're gonna go back to this book here, and we're gonna go back to the book America, right? This is the first book, right? It's called America, right? The first book called America that they're not teaching in American history classes, right? The title of the book is called America, literally, written in the 1600s by Arnaldus Montanus, and we see this. Let me see. Let's go to here. I'm going to try to find this one part. You know what? Actually, I have it somewhere else. I have it over here somewhere. I already have it loaded up. So I don't have to go through the whole book. I think I have it loaded up somewhere over here. Let's see. It's an actual, let's see. Maybe, you know what? I'm going to, let's see. Toltec search, Toltec Olmec. All right. So now, so yeah, we're wrapping things up soon. But I just wanted to show you all this right here. Right here is this right here. This is from the same book, America, right? And we see a black Native American, right? And who do we see attacking him? Who's attacking him? Who we call this person? Obviously, this is like a Caucasian person, but obviously he's covered in a lot of hair. He's like a wild man, and it goes back to this. These are called wild men. There were real wild men in the woods like that, attacking people. Jumping out like living in the woods, right? Right. We see that's the wild man. You can also call them a woodwozer, right? Right. Look at that. You know, you could say these are all fables or tales, but we see that there are real people with that, and there's whole tribes of people that are covered in hair. It's a real thing, right? And so we're gonna click on this, right? We can see there's people that weren't woodwozers, and then there was woodwozers coming in, right? And interacting with them, right? So there was different groups of people, different tribes of Homo sapien Neanderthalis hybrids, right? So look at that, right? We see that? These are called woodwozers, right? Or wild men. And a lot of original European coat of arms have a woodwoz on it. So some of these are, you know, coat of arms, right? So I believe this is maybe a coat of arms of somewhere, right? Now look at this. See that these are woodwozes, right? This is woodwoz, right? So this isn't the same as like a Bigfoot. This is more of like a wild man that's covered in hair. This is more like the disorder that we just covered, right? I guess here's Hirtsuism, right? Or Hirsuism. Right, so these are different coat of arms that all have like wild men, and you can see even like Zeus and a lot of these, you know, European gods and stuff like that come from some of these figures, right? Right, and look at this right here. What do we have here? We have black Germans. These are black people. Like, remember I was saying, black people have been are the original people of Europe, and we only got expelled in 1492. So this is black people in Germany before 1492. And look who they're fighting. This is in the year 400, right? Tapestry, wild men and Moors, black people, circa 1400. Museum of Fine Arts in Boston. So this is black people in Germany fighting off who? Woodwozes, wild men, and many of them, if any of y'all seen that movie Fantastic Planet, they're kind of wearing these like kind of jumpsuit, one kind of suit things with a bunch of like almost like camouflage, you know. And this is, you know, and look at this. We got woodwozes again, different coat of arms showing the different woodwozes over time, right? Some are totally covered in hair and some aren't. So these modern ones have less hair on them, right? Over time, we see less hair, and it just comes down to being like, you know, a guy with the big beard, right? Like our figure, you know, what they teach us like as God or whatever, you know? Like we were all brought up in like, hey, this is God. This is what God looks like. It's a Caucasian guy with a long beard. And look, he's got the club, right? So that whole club thing, you know, that's a real thing. When you're talking about cavemen and stuff like that, that's what this is. So this is to Justin, you know, DJ Justin Time, and at Toltec, you know, these are facts. I'm dropping. This is real. This is woodwoz. This is woodwoz in Wikipedia, right? We're seeing a lot of different examples. All right, so we're done with that. So we got woodwozes, right? All right, and once again, this is part of a real thing, right? This is woodwoz, right? Right? See that? This is real. And notice, do you see any black people in any of these pictures? Do you see are there any black people that are covered in fur? There's not, because we weren't mixed into different, you know, our genome wasn't mixed into Neanderthals like that. You see that? That's real. This is all real. None of this is all real. All right. So yeah, enough of that, because I'll do a whole lecture on that in the future. But this is just to ascertain, you know, and this is the first drawing of a Neanderthal that we've ever been able to come in contact with, right? Drawn by in a Russian dynasty, all right? And they did the DNA test on her, right? All right. So at night, because one, he's talking about their teeth, right? They were totally cannibals, or not just cannibals. They were meat eater, 100% meat eaters, and they also ate each other, right? And, you know, if you go to the cold climates, you know, he also purports that maybe they were able to see at night because, let's see, he's talking about night vision.
But not just for food. I believe that Neanderthal males also began hunting human females for sex.
All right. So, you know, so there were, you know, they've proven that, you know, that Neanderthals and humans overlap for a very long time, and there's all types of wars. Now we're going to talk, you know, so now, Jason, so this is at you, Toltec. This whole lecture is dedicated just to you, Jason. You know, I'm putting nails in the coffin and putting more nails in the coffin. I'm even adding nails that I don't have to add, right? Like I didn't even have to go into the Neanderthal stuff for, you know, 20 minutes, but I'm putting mad nails in your coffin, right? So now, so this is at you, Jason Toltec, and this is at you, Justin Lee Lamas, aka DJ Toltec, and aka DJ Just in Time, right? You know, we've proven one that the first people, the first humans are black, the first people of every continent are black, the first Americans were black, and the first civilizations in the Americas were black. Even though you guys don't believe that because you've been, you know, you guys don't read or you guys don't look stuff up. All right. Now we're going to talk about, you know, so we know that Indian people came onto the earth around 55,000 years ago. And we're going to look at the cosmic cycles. And I got this calendar in the back. You see, I got a Mayan calendar there that I actually got in Chichen Itza 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, a couple years ago. And, you know, we're going to look at the actual calendars and the epochs and all that stuff. So, you know, there's the regular calendar, but then there's the long count calendar. We're just talking about the Mayan calendar that came a little bit later, right, of the Mayans, right? And so there's different types of solar years, right? There's one solar year, 394, right? That's 7,000, right? And then there's 157,000. So, you could say that Caucasian people might have been able to be within this. They came, you know, or in and around that time. But if you go to 157,000 years ago, there were no Indian people, right? So how can somebody have a calendar that's counting, you know, 50,000 year cycles, 200,000 year cycles, and they never existed, right? That means that they got their calendar from somebody, a black person that was keeping track, right? And we're going to go to cosmic cycles, the great year. The term great year has two major meanings. It is defined by scientific astronomy as the period of one complete cycle of the equinoxes around the ecliptic, or about 25,800 years. So that means, you know, if you take 25,000, right, and then you divide it by the number of years that Indian and Asian people have been around, right? The Dravidians first appeared around 55,000 years ago, right? That means they've only been around for about two of these cycles, two great years, right? Whereas we've proven that black people go back at least 300,000 years. So that's a whole, you know, if you take, that's at least like 12 of those cycles, right? Right? So it's like, yeah, like 3 times 4, that's like 12 of those cycles. So who made these calendars? Who made these extreme astronomical, you know, calendars that, you know, these star charts and things like that go back hundreds of thousands of years? That's clearly black people, because, you know, we've been here to keep track, right? They, you know, Indian people have only been here 55,000 years. So they've only been able to keep track of about 2 of these cycles, right? So I'm going to read some more. So about 25,000 years. A more precise figure of 25,772 years is currently accepted. The position of the Earth's axis in the northern night sky currently almost aligns with the star Polaris, the North Star. This is a passing coincidence and has not been so in the past and will not be so again until a great year has passed. right? So 25,000 years from now, then it'll be lined up again. But usually it's not, right? So they're saying that these are great cosmic cycles, right? And these calendars, right? These calendars were based on that, right? Like we have this, you know, these long counts of the Mayan calendar. They're based on these super long cycles. Oh, I hit 2 hours. I wasn't trying to do 2 hours. All right, so yeah, I'm gonna wrap this up. That's 2 hours. It's going way too long. So yeah, that's basically it, right? We did this, Mastadon bones. All right, we pretty much covered everything. Let me see if there's anything we didn't cover. We covered this, covered this. Let's look at this a little bit closer. I'm gonna have this as like a main picture. I'm gonna end on this, right? So we got Montezuma right there, right? Clearly black, right? Black people in the Yucatan, right? The Mayan god M. This is called the M god, right? These are clearly black people, Mayans. Look, clearly a black man, right? And then some Indian people there with him, or some light-skinned black people, but clearly black, right? Look at this, black person, black Americans, right? We saw them in the first book in America by Arnaldus Montanus, right? And here's depicting different, there's these porcelain sculptures they used to make of like the 4 races of the earth, and they'd have like Africa, Europe, Asia, and America. And look, America's black people and Africa are black people on both of them, right? And you can find those around if you type 4 corners of the earth sculptures or something like that or whatever. You can find that. Once again, here's the Lucia woman, right? Once again, here's that very old Olmec head, right? Called El Negro, right? Tres Zapotes is located on the slopes of the Tuxtla Mountains in the state of Veracruz. It is one of the most important Olmec sites and first to be written about. Olmec heads date back circa to 1600 BC, right? And look at these, more black Americans, you know? So this is at you, Jason Toltec and Justin. You guys are lying, right? You guys haven't been reading. You guys need to read, and that's why I created this lecture to inform the world and others, right? This is the Ohlone people ceremonial dance and a mission of San Jose, California. Remember, we found black people in California up to 130,000 years ago in San Diego. We have all those facts proven in this lecture. All right, and Native American Blackamoor statue, right? Look at that. See, Native Americans, right? The same feather kilts that we saw before, right? And then indigenous woman and a man of Tierra del Diego, South America. 1795, black people, look at that, Afro. These are not slaves. These are not runaways that they'll try to teach you, right? This is some Mayan folks, right? And these are two, this is from a 1,000 Go Ahead video. Remember I was telling you about his site. Y'all should definitely check that out. And these are some, modern black American women that are wearing some of the older styles of, like, you can see this head wrap type of style. We were still wearing these not long ago. Black women were still wearing these exact same styles not long ago that the Mayans were wearing. So these are clearly, we've kept a lot of these traditions. A lot of them have been erased, but a lot of these, we've kept these traditions. So I'm going to look at what Toltec actually said to me. He's like, yo, you're a clown. No one knows who you are. Stop tagging me with your nonsense. You don't care about science or facts, just pushing your own agenda. Right? And he says, if you talking quantum mechanics, then you ain't saying anything. And Toltec's like, you stuck in the physical, dense, holographic reality in a matrix that was designed to keep you in an eternal loop. Break free of the meat body and get to your universal mind. Da da da. You don't even know the etymology of the words you use. But let's see what I said. Since you probably have a hidden second account, since you're a clout chaser like Vector, there's the response to your etymology comment. Here's a great resource for learning etymology, etymology dictionary online. All right, now, and see, that's him trying to drop some Masonic stuff too. Like, oh, you don't know the etymon, you don't know etymology, but it's like, yo, I know etymology, and I was giving him etymology, in my critiques, and he tried to come at me. Let me see. This is the last thing, because he came at me. Let me see. Toltec. I'm gonna type. Let's see. Toltec. Right. He said something about. Let me see. Toltec. I'm gonna type. He tried to call me a 5%er. What is this? A 5%er. Oh, I can't even find it. Yeah, I can't even find it. He was like, oh, you know, Radon, you stupid fake 5% or something. I'll pull that up. I'll have that up. But yeah, he was just coming at me in all types of different angles. And that's why I created this lecture, to be able to, you know, expose his BS, right? And yeah, we're pretty much done. I think that's it. And on this. All right, peace. So I'm going to flip around. All right, so yeah, that's the end of this lecture. So this is to Justin, and this is to Jason Toltec. You know, we've clearly established, you know, that the Olmecs were black, and you guys are racist. All right, so peace.